Thanks for joining us. Welcome, welcome. Just give it about 20 more seconds to let folks get settled in and connected to audio. Great to see some familiar names out there. Welcome. All right, let's get started. First of all, I'd like to thank the audience for joining our webinar today, Flexible, Reliable SAP Data Integration to Snowflake Data Cloud. I'm Miranda Berg, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at SNP and your host. Today's 45-minute webcast is being recorded, and all registrants will be sent the link to the recording and presentation at the end. You have the flexibility to adjust your screen size, and you can find that expand button directly in the middle of your screen below the speaker boxes. Questions can be asked at any time via the chat function on the side of your screen, and we'll be answering them at the end of the presentation. With that, I would like to introduce our speakers and experts for today. Ripujan, he is our Senior Solutions Engineer at Snowflake, and we have Benjamin Deaver, and he is our Senior Solution Architect out of Texas for SNP Group. With that, I will pass it on to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Miranda and Ben, for the opportunity today. And thank you, everyone, for making the time to join us for this webinar. I'm Ripujan. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. And in my role as a Senior Solutions Engineer at Snowflake, I get to work with awesome partners like SNP to help build joint solutions that enable our customers mobilize their data. I hope everyone stays till the end where Ben does a cool demo for all of you. But even before we get there, Ben, I'll let you introduce yourself, please.
Thank you much, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Benjamin Deaver. I am Senior Solution Architect here at SNP Group. I have about over 20 years of experience in the SAP space, really focused on data integration and data management to this point. I'm really thankful in my role. I get to work with, much like Ripu said, some awesome partners, especially my friends over at Snowflake, and be able to help share some really groundbreaking technologies on how we can help you integrate your SAP data to platforms such as Snowflake, and then really find ways to be able to reduce the overhead, the cost, or the effort associated with that, while really wringing value out of that data asset that you have. And so with that, I say, let's go ahead and get started. Sound good? All right, so the topic of the day is we're talking about challenges with ERP data analytics, specifically SAP data. There's a couple of unique challenges that exist in the SAP space. One of them is going to be, in your average SAP customer ecosystem, you're going to have multiple ERP instances. You're going to have multiple, whether it's ECC or S4 or combination, or you're going to have ECC plus BW plus CRM plus SRM, Solution Manager, GRC. You have multiple application stacks that all operate inside of that same ecosystem. And being able to have enterprise-wide visibility just inside of that SAP ecosystem can be very challenging. Now, taking it a step further, taking that ERP data and being able to bring a layer of visibility with the non-SAP data is a very common challenge that we run into. Being able to integrate that non-SAP data into your SAP ERP systems, it's a challenging and a very expensive proposition oftentimes. Being able to get the data out of your SAP systems, that can also be very challenging just by the nature of how the ERP landscapes integrate. And so being able to bring that SAP, non-SAP together can be a pretty tremendous organizational hurdle that really restricts people from getting a full, clear view, and then being able to perform those downstream analytics that really provides value. And then the reality is, like SAP data platforms, I don't think anybody has ever said that SAP platforms are not complex They are expensive to manage and maintain. And the reality is they're very difficult to integrate. SAP is very, very, very good at what it does. And part of what makes it so amazing at what it does is complex data models and very effective business process. But along with that high level of product maturity is also a difficulty with integration to outside data, which then goes back to that first point or that second point of integrating the non-SAP and SAP data together. And so today we're going to talk about how we're going to kind of change the landscape and help showcase a way to be able to solve some of these problems. So what we're talking about today is a product called SNP Glue. We're talking about it specifically in the context of Snowflake. And so let me give you a quick 40,000 foot view of what SNP Glue is. SNP Glue is an enterprise data integration tool. It sits on your SAP NetWeaver stack. It is an SAP add-on. It is SAP certified. That is going to allow you to push any data from your NetWeaver stack via the application layer, and we're going to be able to push it up to Snowflake for you. It is an SAP-centric tool. It is absolutely geared. It is written by SAPers for SAPers. And we'll do a demo here in a few minutes, and everybody with an SAP background is going to look at the tool and they're immediately going to recognize and they're going to feel comfortable with how it looks because it is an SAP add-on. Now, taking it a step further, SNP Glue is going to bring a tremendous amount of functionality, not the least of which is that we're taking advantage of some new capabilities that Snowflake, as the leading data platform, has brought to bear. The first is going to be streaming. The concept of being able to stream data out of an SAP NetWeaver stack, that's a difficult task. And so SNP Glue is going to bring you the capability of near real-time streaming data off of your NetWeaver stack. And then on top of that, we're going to bring native integration with the Snowpipe Streaming API to be able to stream data into your Snowflake Cloud Data Platform. And so you have true near real-time capability of accessing and having reportability of your data coming off of your SAP application stack. So truly, data that changes inside of the SAP application nearly instantly will be reflected inside of your Snowflake data platform. And then finally, this is the big announcement that came out, but something we want to talk about, which is the native application. It is an automatic and cost-optimized methodology for being able to ingest and handle complex and challenging merge patterns so that you have immediate reportability of your data, a very simplified opportunity to be able to get your data in a consolidated and merged fashion while still maintaining total visibility of the data from the moment it hits your Snowflake platform. So we're bringing you opportunities to share the data in a real-time fashion, be able to stream the data into Snowflake so it's reportable that much faster, and then being able to solve some of those most complex data management issues, specifically around merging or keeping data up to date when it's changing in that SAP ecosystem in a very effective, timely, and cost-effective manner. And so what I want to do right now is hand over to Ripu to talk a little bit about the data cloud aspect of this. So Ripu?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I think it's safe to assume that most, if not all of you, are also familiar with Snowflake, the data cloud. Snowflake has been on a journey for over a decade now to break down data silos and get organizations to collaborate not only internally, but also with your organization's customers and partners in a self-service, but still like in a governed and secure fashion, right? Snowflake is the place where organizations come and ask questions of their data, such as, has there been any trends or anomaly in my spend in different territories over the last 12 months for this particular raw material? What was the root cause of that? Questions like, the data share that from my logistics partner suggests that the inventory will be affected. What impact does that have on my forecasted sale in this particular region, right? Or questions like, I have excess inventory in one region, but stockouts in the other. How do I decide what should be transferred, right? So the decisions that are unlocked by collaborating in the data cloud, it's truly transformative. Now the visual that you see on the slide is our latest depiction of data collaboration and secure sharing that happens between individual Snowflake accounts. This collaboration is powered by a global data network. We call it the Snow Grid, but that's built across clouds, across all three clouds, AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure as well, and across regions. So no matter how global or how local or how big or small or different volume size or whatever shape your data is in, you as a Snowflake user get the same Snowflake experience to help your organization deliver on your business goals. Next slide, please, Ben. Now, a key enabler of this collaboration in the data cloud is the Snowflake Marketplace. It's where Snowflake users come and discover third-party data products as well as apps. And you as a Snowflake user could market your own data product across the data cloud, right? But collaboration and marketplace is only valuable if you are able to use that data to enrich your business's primary data source, right? And SAP systems happen to be that critical data source. 77% of world's transactions run on SAP systems. So having the ability to join SAP ERP data along with your other offline, online, store data, IT data, other OT data, machine data, all of that can help improve business processes such as planning and forecasting, sales and inventory, supply chain analysis and risk management, improving product yield and efficiency, and optimizing customer fulfillment. These are just some business processes examples, right? But as Ben pointed out earlier, SAP systems are expensive to scale, and although you could do analytics in SAP, they tend to remain siloed analyses, right? So how can businesses take advantage of Snowflake's ease of use and administration, as well as the scalability and elasticity it provides, and then get a complete analytical and predictive view by combining non-SAP data along with the SAP data? Well, that's the problem statement that SNP Glue and their partnership with Snowflake addresses. It's the easy button to ingest your SAP data to Snowflake and be able to replicate and stream the transaction changes that happen in SAP and stream it straight to Snowflake. Ben, tell us more with the architecture diagram, please.
Hey, great. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so at a high level, let's talk about enterprise architecture and how this fits into your company's ecosystem. Now, SNP is going to stand as that integration tool that's the SAP add-on, which is going to help you integrate from the SAP applications up to your Snowflake Data Cloud. Now, an important distinction here is we tend to default to talking about the ERP. We tend to default to only speaking about that. SNP Glue is a NetWeaver stack tool, and so it's an add-on for any SAP NetWeaver stack software platform. And so whether that be your ECC, S4, SRM, CRM, Solution Manager, BW, SNP Glue can help handle that extraction and load up to Snowflake. Now, SNP Glue does have a full-fledged transformation layer. However, the reality is when you're integrating with Snowflake, Snowflake is a world-class leader in that transformation capability. So let's help you advance to a kind of a paradigm of using that ELT pattern where SNP Glue is going to help with that extraction and loading and pushing the data up to Snowflake. And then Snowflake, with its rich partner ecosystem and the wide skill sets that exist there, can help with the data transformation to be able to have your endpoint model data. And that's what drives you towards those advanced data visualizations, being able to truly democratize data. Think of having, the self-service data marketplaces that everybody always wants to get to. Being able to help serve partners and third parties, being able to drive applications or data science initiatives. And right now, one of the biggest gaps that we see in the marketplace is being able to bring that extremely high value SAP data into that consolidated single data platform ecosystem and find an effective way of integrating that data together, and that's where SNP Glue plugs in. Now, one of the challenges in this enterprise analytics is when you start looking at what we call high churn data. And so think about your huge data sets that exist within SAP, and I'll default back to the ERP. So your BSEG table or your AC DACA if you're on S4. So huge tables, billions upon billions of rows of data. They're very wide and they have a high density of data. But not only that, you can have on any given day changes that occur within a huge swath of that data set. Meaning it's possible to be making accounting data entries to anything in the open fiscal year. Well, when you're in December and you've got an entire fiscal year sitting behind you, that's a huge segment of data that you can throw an update at. And that's where the native application framework really steps in. And this is where I want to be able to start talking. You'll see this third piece at the bottom beneath SAP BW, that marketplace and third-party data and apps. That's a huge benefit that SNP and Snowflake, through our partnership, are bringing to the table, because now we have introduced a way with a proven pattern to be able to very reliably and very effectively integrate data up to Snowflake in a near real-time fashion, make it immediately reportable, but then also be able to handle those updates that can happen virtually anywhere within the data set in a timely and cost-effective manner, which has historically been very challenging to be able to do. And so really what I want to do is focus on that marketplace, third-party data and applications. And Raghu, I'll hand it back over to you to be able to chat about that just a little bit more.
Yeah, so as the name suggests, think of the native application framework as an app store, right? Oftentimes there will be common or proprietary tasks that you wish that there was an app for that, right? The native application framework allows for that. It allows app providers to package up apps and then publish it as well as monetize it on the marketplace and make it distributable to all Snowflake customers. So a Snowflake user can go to the marketplace and install that app in their Snowflake account while obeying all the RBAC rules as well as the governance benefits that come with Snowflake account, right? Or the policies that you have set up in your Snowflake account. Now, SNP has built one such app, and it's available on the marketplace today for free. It's a great companion app to SNP Glue and assists with the optimized merge of high volume transactions that are getting streamed from SAP and making it available for downstream analysis and consumption. Next slide, please, Ben. Yeah, so this is just a couple of screenshots of what SNP's app on the Snowflake Marketplace looks like, right? If you go to Snowflake Marketplace and search for SNP in the search bar, their app shows up, and you as a Snowflake user are able to install the app right away for free. If you're landing SAP data into Snowflake via SNP Glue, this app will come handy. Ben will shortly show us a demo. But please do tell us more, Ben, about the architecture of SNP Glue and this native app.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, sir. So as we jump into the architecture of SAP data integration into Snowflake, so let's talk very specifically about how the native application works in the context. So over on the source, whatever your NetWeaver stack is, whether it's ECC, S4, BW, B4 HANA, that's fine. We have this real-time replication that's taking place via Snowpipe streaming. Now, one of the benefits that Snowpipe streaming brings to the table is that instead of using kind of the historic method of loading data into Snowflake, which was we're going to write a bunch of highly compressed CSV files and then issue JDBC commands for either a bulk insert or bulk merge or bulk copy. The downside to that was that while everything was relatively performant, you had to wait for the final CSV file to be delivered before those JDBC commands could be issued. And the net impact was that there was a delay on the data being reportable. There was also an increased credit consumption on the Snowflake side that ended up causing Snowflake customers to have slightly higher loading costs than they needed to. So with the advent of Snowpipe streaming, what we see is that the moment data is pushed across through the Snowpipe streaming API into Snowflake, it's committed and it's reportable at that moment. So you're not waiting on all of those CSV files to be delivered. You're simply making the data available the moment that it hits. Snowpipe streaming API is also substantially less expensive from a credit consumption standpoint. So really from our customers' perspective, we're looking at it and we're definitely seeing this as a win-win, simply because the data is available faster and it's going to be cheaper to load the data. So we're streaming data, we're pushing it into this staging table. Fantastic. So we've got this incremental update data, basically a CDC audit log of the data. What the native application does for us is that it allows us to schedule a merge into this main table. And what that scheduled merge is going to do is that instead of with every record that comes in running a discrete merge command on the Snowflake side, we have a background scheduled. Maybe it's every 4 hours, maybe every 8, maybe every 24. It's up to you as the customer to establish what you'd like. But there's a background scheduled merge process that will consolidate the audit log that has come in and then apply the merge over to the main table. So any partition swapping that has to happen or any partition rebuilds that need to happen on the Snowflake side, they're only going to happen on a scheduled regular basis, as opposed to constantly happening, especially in those high churn data sets. Again, think back to your BSEG or AC DACA data set. Those are constantly changing. They're constantly being updated. And so you can just imagine you would have a huge warehouse managing those merge statements that is constantly chewing away, because you're constantly seeing a stream of changes coming through. What the data streaming for SAP, what that native application is doing for you is it's allowing you to collect changes and then in a scheduled manner execute those merges, so you minimize the number of micro partition swaps that need to happen, thereby reducing the amount of time that merge takes to execute, dramatically reducing the cost associated with it. And the best part of this is that throughout this entire process, the data remains reportable, meaning that, and I'll go back to those winning scenarios again, meaning that the data is available faster, it is reportable faster, it is cheaper to load, and it's now cheaper to manage while maintaining that constant reportability. And those are all wins that get passed on to the customer. And these are all to help drive and empower the underlying analytics, the business intelligence, those predictive, prescriptive, descriptive analytics that you have that are driving your business. Now, as a final point, one of the things I definitely want to mention is that we're talking about a lot of different objects that are created and managed on Snowflake to be able to execute this native application on Snowflake's capabilities. All of the artifacts are controlled and generated via SNP Glue. And so you're not going to have to go out into Snowflake and create 18, 20 different artifacts, whether they be streams or tasks. No, there's a simple user interface on the Snowflake side, and there's a simple user interface on the SAP add-on side. And so your data engineers are not going to have to dedicate months or multiple man days of their life trying to architect all of this. SNP Glue and its native app on Snowflake are truly going to become the easy button for you, so that you can push that data in a near real-time capacity into your Snowflake data platform, make that data immediately available, and allow your data engineers and your analytics and BI team to really start extracting the value from that SAP data. And again, once it arrives there, then you're free to be able to join it really easily and effectively with all those non-SAP data sources, thereby closing one of those huge gaps in the ecosystem. And so on that note, I am going to shift over to a demo. Now, full and fair disclosure, I'm going to be showing a recorded demonstration because I'm really not capable of effectively talking and typing at the same time. So I'll be talking over.
Ben, your audio is muted.
I muted myself. Sorry about that. So SNP Glue sits on the NetWeaver stack. This is going to look like SAP because it's written in ABAP. We sit in our own namespace. We utilize ABAP development packages to organize all of the development objects inside of SNP Glue. You can see here things are managed inside of a package and folder structure. But most importantly, all of this looks like SAP because, again, it is written by SAPers for SAPers. Now, what you're looking at right now, this is the integration framework. This is the actual pipeline. We have a full-fledged transformation layer that's available to us. We're managing the underlying SAP field names while also driving all of this information forward to Snowflake. Now, as we look at SNP Glue as a whole, how do we connect it to Snowflake? Well, the reality is it's a very simple process to connect either through the internal stage or the Snowpipe streaming model. And as we jump into the Snowpipe streaming connection, which is what you see on the screen right now, these are standard configuration tasks that your basis team is going to be comfortable with on day one. As an example, we actually implemented SNP Glue for the first time at a customer just a few hours ago, 90 minutes from transport install to moving hundreds of thousands of records up to Snowflake. SNP Glue's got a built-in scheduler as well. This is what we're going to be using for streaming data out of this system. So we're going to go ahead and pull up my request monitor, and you can see that we are pushing thousands of records of data on a second-by-second basis for 4 or 5 different tables here in the back end. This data is actively being pushed to Snowflake right now in this demonstration. And so you can see these updates are pushing through. We can see that it's a runtime of 1 second at a time. So sub-second integration from the moment of commit to actually pushing the data up to Snowflake and it being affirmatively received and committed within Snowflake. So that's a very, very important distinction. Now, shifting over, this is on our Snowflake side. What I'm showing right now is actually a dashboard that showcases, hey, I've got 4,000 records of Delta, 51,000 in our main table, but the net to that on my view, that consumption view, is that 55,000 records. Now, the native app is running behind the scenes, and you can see it just executed, and my Delta count dropped down to that 600. Now we're up to 1,000. But that native application on every 60 seconds, I've got it running very frequently while it's in a demo mode, that Delta is being pushed over to the main, and the view is automatically showing the most up-to-date records. But you can see in this dashboard, this data is streaming in. Now, you can see we look over at the apps in our actual landscape. I'm pulling up the application right now to be able to show you the user interface. The user interface is written in Streamlit. It is exceptionally simple. Remember, we're shooting for easy button here. We're trying to make this as simple as possible. And so as we pull up the merge UI, what I have right now is I have 5 tables that have been put in here. I have 5 that are active. The settings that we're going to be working against, the warehouse, some suffixes, and how often you want the application to be running. I've got it running every minute. But realistically, this is a very, very simple activity to go through and work through. You've seen all of the configurable pieces already. There's just not that many things that are going to be difficult or going to get in your way. And so as we continue on, you can see there's still data that's streaming in from our back-end SAP system. Our Delta count is increasing. And when that 60-second timer is up, then we'll see that the native application automatically executes in the back end, executes that merge pattern for us. And again, the truly important piece, the data becomes reportable at that moment. So our native application, let's go and actually show you where the native application is located. So if you scroll to the Snowflake Marketplace, and you type in SNP or SAP, immediately SNP Glue Connector for SAP will pop up. How easy is it to be able to install? Honestly, it's follow the instructions. There's a button you click to say get it. And at that point, you're just installing it into your account. There's some documentation that's available to be able to help you with that installation process. But as I mentioned, we were able to set this up with a new customer this morning in about 90 minutes end to end. Jump back over to my screen. And so really what I'd like to do is I'd like to jump into a kind of a conclusion piece right here, and then we'll hang out for some question and answer. But in conclusion, SNP Glue, it is going to be that easy button for you to integrate SAP data up to your Snowflake data platform. It's an easy to use push architecture. It's written by SAPers for SAPers. It is an SAP certified solution. We have the capability of streaming data. We can batch the data, or you can do a combination of both. We've talked a lot about the Snowpipe Streaming API. This is a huge development for both Snowflake and for SNP because it allows us to make the data immediately available for your reporting needs. There are true near real-time use cases that exist out there, but when you had to introduce a few minutes of delay, sometimes that can be hugely impactful to your organization. We've cut that down so it's truly near real-time. Again, I just want to harp on this. Data is immediately reportable. It's immediately available within Snowflake. And then finally, that managed merge process. And I cannot stress this enough. When you're merging data against a multiple billions of rows architecture, being able to have that streamlined merge process that is handled in the background in a cost-effective and like truly end-to-end managed methodology makes your life so much easier. But the net result here is that you have a lower data cost or lower data loading cost. So it's cheaper to bring the data in, a faster data availability, and then a lower merge cost with just a lower management overhead associated with it. And so everybody, I'd like to thank you so much for sitting here with us. I'd love to be able to jump into a Q&A session. And so if there's any questions that have come up, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Ben and Ripu, thank you so much. Lots of great information here. Okay, and the chat box is full. All right, so after applying complex business transformation rules to integrate SAP and non-SAP data into BW, how does SNP take advantage of this integrated data, taking into consideration the architecture of BW info providers?
So that's a great question. SNP Glue can install on an underlying NetWeaver stack. And so if you have a curated data model that exists within your SAP BW stack, it's possible for SNP Glue to actually integrate data from those curated info providers and integrate that up to Snowflake. If you think about it, your DSOs, ADSOs, your various info providers, all the way up to, if you're running on an older version, info cubes or, multi or composite providers and newer versions, being able to integrate that truly mature data model that your organization has already built and be able to integrate that data up to Snowflake, absolutely possible out of the box with SNP Glue. Because we do recognize there are cases where there's a tremendous amount of value in that curation that took place on the BW stack, and your organization may want to hold on to that. You've invested thousands of man hours in it. Absolutely no reason to reinvent the wheel. So let's take the curated data, integrate that up to Snowflake, and then you have the ability to merge it with your non-SAP or be able to plug it into kind of the Lego bricks of the cloud data analytics platform and be able to bring the best, be able to wring value out of that data further. Great question, thank you.
Are there any constraints on the version edition of HANA SNP Glue can load from?
So not really. The constraint is you've got to be a NetWeaver stack 7.01 SP14, I believe, which is substantial. It's fairly old. If you're running on HANA, you're going to be fine. You're a high enough NetWeaver version. But the only real technical constraint I've got is NetWeaver 7.01 SP14 or higher.
Excellent. How can internal audit use this to help meet their audit requirements? Financial.
That's a great question. So from an internal audit perspective, think about being able to stream. I'll give you an example from a real customer that I work with that I've actually got a call with later on today. They are streaming all of their credit card data to their data platform. They have their own fuel cards. And so as those cards are used by their customer base, it is near real time streamed and they use it for being able to do fraud detection, or being able to make sure that they're managing customers appropriately, being able to make sure that somebody who's hit their limit isn't also able to go and still procure stuff in a near real-time basis. So from an audit perspective, think about fraud or kind of aberrant behavior detection, common patterns. However, once you get into Snowflake as that data cloud platform, the ability to apply those patterns, those AI ML patterns to the data set becomes dramatically easier, because you have this democratized data platform where you can take the best of breed AI ML patterns from a rich partner ecosystem, apply it against the data, enrich the data, and be able to get very quick feedback. So hopefully that was an example that resonates with you, but that was the first one that came to mind.
Does SNP support batch data processing, or is it mainly for streaming use cases?
So we can support batch or streaming. Batch is absolutely, you can support batch. So yes.
What's the impact considerations of upgrading SNP Glue JDBC to streaming version?
Now that's a great question. So it is two different storage connections, and so there is a little bit of redevelopment work that is needed. And so the short answer is there is a little bit of rework that is needed to be able to transition from that legacy JDBC over to the Snowpipe streaming connection. It's not a tremendous amount of work. The customers I've helped with this to this point, it's gone pretty quickly, but there is some button clicking that is required.
Yeah, and to add to that, no change. If you're already a Snowflake customer, no changes on Snowflake side will be required, just on the SAP system side.
Correct. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, it's on the Snowflake side. The data still looks exactly the same. We're just going to be changing the mechanism. Instead of using those JDBC commands, we'll be pushing through the Snowpipe streaming API. But the destination table on the Snowflake side still looks exactly the same. So it's possible to make that transition and orchestrate it to be seamless. Absolutely. Thank you for that addition, Ripu.
What does SAP certified mean? Maybe we can think in terms of an issue with SAP. Would there be an assumption that SNP Glue could be responsible? And is there a real risk of such an issue occurring?
No, so SAP certified means that, so we carry several different certifications from SAP specifically. So the NetWeaver certification is SAP certification that our add-on is allowed to be installed and complies with their best practices on the NetWeaver stack. And then we also carry a Rise with SAP certification, which is specific to obviously, SAP Rise initiatives. And then finally with the S/4HANA Private Cloud Edition, which is kind of a pinnacle level certification of being able to operate inside of those S4 environments, and again, be blessed by SAP. Now, when we say what does that certification mean, SAP investigates and they look at all add-ons that do carry any level of certification in order to make sure that they're following best practices, aren't doing something that's dangerous to the core ERP. Now, to add on to that, SNP Glue actually resides inside of its own namespace. And so it's going to sit slightly pulled away from your core application stack, from the core NetWeaver stack. That's a benefit because now it's not going to directly interfere with anything in your application stack. It's possible for SNP Glue to operate just a little bit off the side in its own namespace. So now we can upgrade SNP Glue without impacting the rest of your NetWeaver stack. And the upgrade to your NetWeaver stack when you're doing a support pack or an enhancement pack upgrade becomes a really nominal event to SNP Glue. The two of them tend not to kind of impact each other too terribly much in those scenarios. So hopefully that answered your question around the certifications. And then one other thing I want to mention real quick, we're talking a lot about SAP certifications. It's also important to note that SNP is a strategic technology partner of Snowflake. This is a huge, huge deal for us to be recognized by Snowflake as this strategic technology partner as well.
Great, thank you. Really great questions from the audience. Thank you for your
Absolutely.
engagement. Next question. In your demo, I see you're pulling from SAP tables, raw data. SAP ERP sometimes have dozens of tables associated with the transaction because of indexing. Can SNP call ABAP programs, function models, and or BW extractors to pull join data from the associated tables?
Absolutely. The short answer is yes. Now, rather than try to list off all the things that we can get to, any structured data that exists inside of your SAP NetWeaver stack can be integrated with SNP Glue, up to and including calling transactions or calling backend ABAP in order to be able to grab that data and then push it to Snowflake. So ODP framework, BW extractors, views, CDS views, tables, all the way down the list. One important distinction to mention is that if you're not on HANA yet, you still have these things called cluster tables. SNP Glue can absolutely operate against cluster tables as well. And so your BSEG that's sitting out there can absolutely be integrated as well. Great question.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. Got time for a couple more. Can you support SAP Rise?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we are SAP Rise Private Cloud certified. Now, it's important to note we are not certified for SAP Rise Public Cloud Edition. We're still working with SAP on what that specific roadmap looks like. The reality is on the public cloud side that there's really not a great roadmap for add-ons that exists yet. But so that's work in progress. But the majority of people who are implementing Rise are going to a private cloud edition, and we can absolutely support the private cloud edition for Rise with SAP. And again, we do have that specific certification, which is a requirement of being able to operate within the Rise environments.
Excellent. And furthermore, can we support S/4HANA?
Yes, and we can support S/4HANA. Absolutely. Great question. Great clarifying.
Excellent. I'm going to end with this question. Is SAP Data native application available now?
Yes, absolutely. Everything that you saw right now is available. It is general availability across the board. So everything from the functionality inside of SNP Glue with the streaming, the Snowpipe streaming API, as well as the native application, and the native application content that exists up on Snowflake, all of that is available right now.
Yeah, I'll just add that the application currently is available on all AWS deployments of Snowflake. Azure is coming in the next couple of weeks, so we're definitely scaling the application availability across the board.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that, sir.
Excellent. And this concludes our Q&A portion for today's session. Great engagement from the audience out there. Thank you so much. To our speakers today, I appreciate your time and energy. I know we covered a lot of information in 45 short minutes, so don't worry, we'll be sending you the recording and the link to the PowerPoint, and I'll include additional resources for product information and about our partnership with Snowflake that you can peruse at your leisure. And with that, wishing everybody a fantastic Wednesday. Thank you for attending.
Thank you all so much for attending.